Hello, everyone. Welcome to another open source noodling around gardening, open source maintenance, whatever you want to call it. I'm Alan, and with me this week are Will, Chris, Alex, and way over there is Keith. And these are the open source team at Anchore working on Syft and Grype and a whole bunch of other rather cool stuff. You know, you guys have been so productive over the last few months of burning through and triaging all the issues and getting on top of everything. We're running out of things to talk about, so I'm hoping you guys have all brought. You know, it's the last day of the week for us. It's the last of the last Fridays that we're not going to be here. So today is Friday for us. So you know, bring your toys and bring your games. Did you do that at school on the last day of term? Bring toys in? No? Okay. Just me.
It was more like a reading day, bring books.
Oh, right. When I was a kid, it was bring toys and, you know, Kaplunk and Monopoly and stuff like that. Maybe not Monopoly because everyone argues. Anyway, enough about my childhood. What have we got? Have we got any issues to triage or anything to deal with that are not false positives or anything?
I have a small PSA I would like to share with the audience. If anyone who comes across this video is a Nix OS user and they are doing any kind of scanning with Syft or trying to get package manifests and they're running into instances where they see 0 packages, they see nothing found, please post an issue and tag at SPIFCS on Syft. Because I've seen 1 or 2 of these in the wild, like not on our repos, but like out on the Nix OS discourse or another person remarking about it. When I build a container image that uses the base image of Nix OS and add packages, I can see a whole manifest of them. So I want to know how people are building images where we're not detecting it. What are, what are the gaps? And I've linked a specific instance of the discourse thread in our chat, Alan, so you can just jump to that.
Thanks.
Yep. But this is the one that I saw. I want more details about it. And if you have details, then share them, please. That's my PSA.
Nice. Yeah, we've recently had an update to Nix package support. Not necessarily Nix OS, but just Nix package support with all the derivations and all the other wonderful stuff.
I think there's sort of more than one way to use Nix, right? Like Nix is a package manager and a distro, and I think kind of a philosophy for building VMs and images. And so I wonder if maybe these people are running Nix as a package manager in their VM or running inside like if building images is what they're doing, maybe is a difference.
Yeah, and I think still, even if they're doing it that way versus just like building your traditional like Docker container from the base image, all of that's still going to be co-located under Nix/store/star. And I have to go and explore the VM building process that Will just kind of outlined. But if someone is more of an expert and they're doing this right now and they're finding no results, that's what I'm trying to like understand. Because I'm trying to understand the surface area of like the gaps that we're missing. So that is a good point, Will.
I'm actually wondering so I'm seeing, BOM is one tool, there's the SBOM Nix, and I'm actually wondering if they're not referencing the Nix store paths the same way that we are. And we've gone through a couple iterations with the Nix cataloger here. And I could definitely see kind of what we got talking about earlier, like, the way that folks are using Nix is just a little different, or like the store assumptions are a little different. So they're, for instance, it could be like clearing out store paths that aren't needed that we could be referencing, but then everything can still run.
Right.
It could be one of those situations. So I am definitely shout out on an issue somewhere. If you're surprised by behavior and you're a Nix user, we want to hear from more Nix users. So that's something that I'm always learning Nix and always needing to learn more. So.
Nice. Do we have? Is there like a specific like tweet size version of that you want to give me, and I can post it out and try and get more people seeing it, other than the lovely, wonderful, beautiful audience that we have here?
I can come up with something and send it to you in
Yeah.
our internal discussion to like get the surface area of more people than just the viewers of this live stream in some time in the future and live right now. But this thread also, if you're looking at Alan's screen, we followed up on this and showed kind of like our methodology of like this is how I would build a Docker container using the base image NixOS. It's below his very nice tons of details that he put in there. Here are the packages that we get. They have the actual specific Nix tagged package to it. And also at the end, we show how we would take that Python multi-port part, specifically the one that the user's inquiring about, and how we generate kind of a vulnerability, a match that he would want to get for a vulnerable container. So we show the whole like, hey, this is how we go from base not installed all the way to installing version below the threshold detected by Grype. How is what we do different from what other people do? How do we incorporate what other people do into so they get the goodness that you can see in this example?
Nice. Yeah, I'm a bit new to Nix as well. I have someone who sits and talks about it non-stop over coffee with me, and he's like full-on evangelist for Nix, and it sounds great. I just haven't taken the time to like drink that particular Kool-Aid yet.
I think the meme has definitely grown from the all like there are literally dozens of us from Arrested Development. I think they're in the thousands now. I think Nix has grown beyond the the niche dozens of us wizard shouting in the square. There's a lot of them.
I think it was someone posted an image of it's just far and away like more packages than any other distro. So to get that, you have to have people engaged and using it, maintaining those things. It's self replicating, like more and more people. I know everyone says like, oh, just got everything, but like there's a pictorial version of, oh, there it is. Nix way over here. it's quite different from like OpenSUSE, Ruby Gems, Homebrew, PyPy, boom, Nix packages way over there. So yeah, it is quite it's quite popular. Yeah.
I like that they're unstable is just so it's so out like stable's already impressive, but they're like, you want real bleeding edge, come over to the dark side here where maybe that's like all your developer workflows and stuff, because that's so bleeding edge. I couldn't imagine like
Yeah.
I can imagine the break that could happen from adopting something like that.
I know number of packages is like GitHub stars. It's not like a certain like metric, but it is a metric, and that is quite anyway. Yes, if you send me some info, I will poke it around all over the place, and we'll try and draw attention to this. Thank you for that. What else? What's next?
I think, Will, you had a Vex issue that you were highlighting earlier. Probably is the next good one.
Yeah. So that's, I'll put that in the end of the chat. So that this is Grype 2813. Is that the one you meant, Alex?
2813.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a feature request where the way I understand it is that the user wants Grype to fail, right? That set a non-zero exit code on like if there's a vulnerability that isn't mentioned by a Vex document. So Vex is a JSON format where you can write down something like, I am suppressing CD1234 for package whatever because package whatever is only vulnerable on, is only vulnerable with this feature and I'm not using this feature, or because, there's like inline mitigations in place, or you can say this vulnerability report is under investigation. You can say this vulnerability report is like vulnerable code not present, right? Maybe you don't have a whole package or something. And I think this user wants to basically have a job that fails if there are sort of any unacknowledged vulnerabilities. They want you to pass a Vex document that they want you to say like, hey, it's fine if you report it as under investigation, which is one of the Vex statuses, but you have to say something about every vulnerability finding. And I thought that was it was kind of an interesting feature request. And we think we have a workaround, but then they asked us, I think they're in their last comment, this user is offering to build the feature, and I think that might be kind of interesting. So I wanted to talk with the team about whether such a feature makes sense, whether we'd accept a PR on it, whether we need to reconsider the idea. So what do you all think?
Well, I mean, so they have this similar to fail on or fail on no statement. So what's the UX of this? It's like fail on. Like what would be the? Oh, here we go. Is that at the bottom of this? Fail on negligible? No, that's a workaround. So like how as a user would I go through and actually try to like use the thing that's been asked to be put in?
So I think what they have is and I'm sort of inferring a lot here. So if you're the original poster or someone with more insight into their thought than I, let me know. But so my understanding is you have, right, my image dash vex, our vex document dash fail on no statement. And then what Grype does is it scans the image using the Vex rules, and any finding that the Vex document is silent on causes a non-zero exit code. And so then the idea is that, you're going along, the job turns red, right? CI blocks, whatever happens. And you're like, oh, there's a new finding. Like maybe a new CVE came out, maybe we merged a new dependency, whatever. There's a new finding. So this is blocked from deploying until somebody goes in and adds a statement to the VAX document covering the new finding. Now, maybe all they do is say it's under investigation. Maybe they say vulnerable code not present. Maybe they say, I don't care right now, but they have to say something. So the idea is, I think, to use Grype plus a Vex document to say basically someone had to act every finding. And I think is what's being asked for. Does that answer your question, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of asking from like the UX, but so like it sounds like so at the very top it's a fail on no statement, and like it doesn't like I think that the how. Let me go back. Yeah, I think it makes sense from like this high level, like we want a workflow to be able to say I want to be able to pass the in circumstances to say I'm still looking at it, but not actually fail things in other circumstances. Like I think from a workload perspective that makes sense. Otherwise, like you must put in a fix or remove something entirely, or put in an ignore, and like that would essentially be the answer right now. It's like, oh, you could put in an ignore statement, the comment. And that's a fine answer, but I think this is more of a Vex first approach, where it's like, hey, if my team is already working with a set of Vex documents and I'm using my workflow by filling out those Vex documents, which is now very standard nowadays, why not be Vex first in trying to honor either in ignoring something, suppressing something, etc. I think it generally makes sense, and I think a fail on. Right now we have fail on, and then you give a severity. We've talked about for Grype 1.0 work, like kind of revamping this to be like fail on, and then have some sort of expression, or it could be like a mixture of severity, or could have things like, say, no statement here. So I kind of like that idea, but I don't know what other folks' thoughts are.
Strictly from the ergonomic standpoint, I think I definitely agree with what you're saying. That like the fail on with some kind of expression sort of will help to keep that consistent, make it easy to add things in the future if we need to. So definitely a +1 on that. The one thing I'm just a little bit confused about still with this issue though, is like I had a suggestion here, which is we have this Vex option, and what that does is it takes it's a set of statuses, and those statuses determine, I think, what to do with the Vex entries. So if all of those entries were added to like a Vex ignore, then like they would get filtered out, like ignoring the show suppress thing, but they would get filtered out. Like, wouldn't that have the same effect, or have I like missed some detail here?
So I think it would kind of have the same effect. So like right now, so by default, if you pass a Vex document to Grype will look at the matches and it will say, oh, you told me this is fixed, so I'm ignoring it. You told me this is not affected, so I'm ignoring it. And you can also add, you could imagine adding under investigation, right? So then Grype can say, like, oh, you told me this is under investigation, so I'm not going to tell you about it again. And then basically what that's doing is like affecting the match results. So but I think that's the way that's different from the feature request is like under the workaround, like what we could do if we wanted to achieve that is we could say, okay, Grype, suppress all Vex statuses, that is any vulnerability that there's a Vex entry about, and fail on negligible. And that will have the effect of failing on any finding that there's no Vex statement about, which I think is what Keith is proposing. However, that also affects the matches, right? Because Grype will just ignore all the matches because you said that any Vex statement should be suppressed. And so if someone is interested in sort of having an accurate vulnerability report where something that's under investigation, for example, should probably still be in the vulnerability report until you prove it's not. So this would allow somebody to require a Vex statement about every finding without having the workaround where Grype is configured to ignore every finding. Does that answer your question, Keith?
Sufficiently, yeah.
Yeah, and this also goes back to like a Grype 1.0 thing where I have a strong suspicion that we're going to be merging together some of these flags that are and config options that are around suppression versus adding versus ignoring into like one common thing. So you have one place to look in Grype config about what actions are going to be taken. Because right now it's a little all over the place. You have to like, well, if you use the exclude flag and ignore configuration, and you have show suppress, like you have this particular behavior. And I think the more that time has gone on with Grype and the current CLI, and we kept like adding on to it, it's gotten more and more untenable. And in my head, like the higher level ask is like, yeah, if we're going to add these kinds of things, I think we want to make it, it should really just go in one spot. And that one spot should be easy to really interpret what's going to happen when I run Grype and I get results, and what's really going to be ignored versus I'm going to fail on something versus it's going to be suppressed, or I'm going to ignore it but then show it, that kind of thing. That's going to be a fun like Grype 1.0 kind of redesign there.
So it sounds like we could tell this user, like, yes, we'd be interested in this feature, and we might rearrange the CLI UX on our way to Grype 1.0.
Well, and I had questions about like the no statement part. Like, so let's say we did dash fail on, and then it took an argument. The argument was like no statement. Like for me, no statement doesn't actually communicate what's happening. Like this is really I want to fail on like some selection of the status field. Like Like I might want to say like, oh, I only want under investigation to be something that kind of max this, but then everything else I should still be able to fail on. Like I think it should be more than just no statement.
Is it? I mean,
I don't think that's what's requested though. Sorry, Keith.
Oh, I agree.
so like to me, this seems like if we were, to kind of go down the path of having a fail on with a more expressive type of thing that we could do. I mean, this is like a Vex entry in there, right? So like fail on a Vex status, and then missing, right? It's like I don't know what exactly what that is, but then you could configure it to fail on different things, right? You could fail on under investigation, fail on not affected, fail on like whichever of the statuses that you want to match on, or the missing a status, like the inverse there. That's kind of what I would expect to see.
What about we don't want to like rely on the two document approach in the sense that like you always need to have the Vex document when you're evaluating this thing. What if it's like a one-time in where the Vex document modifies or enhances the Grype JSON in some way, and the Grype JSON is like what you store, so that when you go back and let's say your image hasn't changed, you don't need to have that document again. Like you now know because those Vex statements existed and NACT or ACT like different parts of the CVE, then the information on the Grype output grows based on the input of that, and then Grype can like act on the output of that data model rather than the combined document. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't like the idea of persisting Grype findings because Grype findings are inherently like
time.
they like an SBOM. It sort of has a long shelf life, right? It's like it's like everything in this container image is listed here. Great. If I don't rebuild the container, that's going to keep being true. But if I say all the vulnerabilities in the container are listed here, like what if something gets disclosed tomorrow?
Oh, yeah.
So I think, right, and so, yeah, I don't know. So I think having the separate, especially because Vex is like a sort of gaining traction open standard. I think someone wanting to use that as the format that their like security team commits facts to version control in or whatever they're doing seems pretty reasonable to me. I'm not saying we shouldn't have information about what Vex did in the Grype output. I don't think we want to like conflate that with the Vex input, which sounded like maybe was happening.
No, okay, that makes sense. If you like not interleaving the data models, like when it would create like data redundancy of like, why would I replicate a status over in the Grype output when it's already in a document that's paired to it? But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying. I was throwing it out there because maybe there's some way that we haven't done a lot of like features where we add flags or fields or actions in Grype that flag on something that kind of is coming in outside of the corpus that Grype knows about. So the document, like the extra document that now it cares about and keeping up with the schema and all of that is,
I mean, Grype already knows about Vex documents. That's not what's requested here, right? You can already like have an SBOM that would fail Grype and then pass --vex my document and mark some things as not affected, vulnerable code not present, and make Grype pass. Like that already exists. I think the request here is to say, like, the request here is to use Grype as a mechanism to like assert the totality of the Vex document. Like this Vex document says something about every finding. Right now, Grype doesn't have an awesome way to do that. And it sounds like, Alex, the request sounds interesting to you, but you don't want to quite build that. And I didn't understand what you wanted to build instead.
it wasn't a mutually exclusive thing. For me, I'm looking at like the UX of having a dash fail on and then say literally no statement. I'm trying to figure out like, how does no statement communicate to people that are like reading the help text? Does it really mean something? And it like, for me, it kind of doesn't. Like with the explanation, it does. And I have this secondary thing, and this is where I think it like kind of got caught up on, which is, well, so there's 4 different statuses, right? Like not affected, affected, fixed, and under investigation. I'm kind of assuming that the Vex spec is going to grow, where there's going to be more statuses become popular. It's a little, might not be true, but like, let's just say that does. It might be that I want to conditionally fail based off of certain kinds of statuses, or maybe not fail because of certain kinds of statuses. It might not. It might be that I don't care about Vex. I have a Vex document, set of Vex documents that say that something about the totality of the results. It might be that it's like, well, no, it really just, please don't fail on things that are under investigation, whatever the other criteria are. So that would be like looking at like the Vex status and saying kind of the opposite, like, well, don't fail on when I see this particular aspect of what the Vex document is claiming.
Right.
And so I get it. It's definitely not what the user's asking. I'm just kind of looking at the UX that's being proposed and kind of imagining how that expands when somebody does ask for like a Vex feature that's in the same vein or similar vein. Like, how do we express that? And I kind of don't know.
How is that different than the Grype Vex add? Like today, you could use the Grype Vex add environment variable or wherever it goes in the YAML to say, don't like suppress vulnerabilities that Vex says are under investigation, which sounds like exactly what you were saying, Alex.
There's one key difference though, that would be failure behavior, right? This user is asking for failure behavior based on that information.
Right. And I think that's one of the things, maybe that's the way to think about this request is like right now, Grype basically sets a non-zero exit code either 1 because it couldn't do the things, right? It couldn't pull the image, you passed a weird combination of flags, whatever. Or you pass -- fail on high, and there's a high severity vulnerability or a critical severity vulnerability. So right now, fail on is only by severity, right? Grype only like the sort of only like, is my scan okay enough to exit 0 functionality Grype has is just a severity gate. And I think that, so this is asking like, can we add a more nuanced gate? Right. And Keith's suggestion that he posted in chat, the -- fail on Vex status equals missing. That might be better UX for exactly this feature. And then we could add other, it would be surprising to me to have -- fail on Vex status equals under investigation, but maybe, because so I see what's happening. We have 2 sort of lists of Vex statuses, right? There's the Vex status that we want to fail on, and then there's the Vex status that we want to exclude a match on. And right now you can only add to the Vex status, the list of Vex statuses that should exclude matches. But it'd be interesting to, yeah, I don't know. We could end up like, that can end up getting really complicated, right? It ends up, and that's one of my concerns, is that it ends up moving Grype away from statements of fact and into statements of opinion, right? Like right now, Grype just says, I believe these CVEs affect these packages in the source that we scanned. And that's sort of a statement of fact. And then like, whether you want to still deploy the image is less Grype's job. Is a question of what the user wants and not a question of fact. and so one of the things that, like, it might make sense to sort of push and say, like, I don't know, that's asking somebody to script a lot, but like it's to look at Grype's JSON and say whether they want to deploy is really asking for quite a bit of extra code. So maybe that's not fair, but it's starting to feel like it grows the scope of the tool away from like directions we're really sure we want to do. Like if there's a popular Linux distro, then we don't support their vulnerability feed. Open an issue, we want to. But if it's like, this, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm I'm not sure how much of a DSL for expressing different times Grype should exit non-zero because of its findings we want to build.
Yeah, I mean, this is where we get into like like you said, we have the report, which is statements of fact, and then the fail on is this like policy engine like behavior. And like, so one path that has been chatted about before in the path is like, well, there's open policy, like use OPA and like they have their own like DSL that we can like leverage to be able to attack on the Grype. But we've essentially said we don't want to go that direction because we think that brings in like a lot of complexity, and it's not really clear what like how to do that without bringing the complexity. So we really said like, hey, if we're going to, and what we have brought in is like fail on behavior, because it's very common for folks to want to stop something in CI when they see a condition that's just like, wait, I wouldn't deploy this because it has a critical, and it's just such a common use case that we've added it. And I'm kind of wondering how much we want to nudge that before we get into like, something as complex as like, say, like OPA. And I think it's like a really open kind of like religious discussion. Like, well, where's the line? And I think because teams are Vex, they're becoming more Vex first. I think it's very difficult to ignore the ask of bringing upgrading fail on to include concepts of Vex. Like, I think it's a very reasonable ask. But I agree. I don't really know how much further the line goes towards like a generic policy engine, because we don't really want to do that. So
right, and I think that this is an interesting request because it's a very, very simple policy, right? As this person, I would like Grype to fail if there is any finding that the authors of the Vex document didn't know about, of any type, of any severity. Now that might keep the authors of the Vex document very busy, depending on how big your images are and what else in them. But that's a very like clear and simple thing, almost like fail on critical, right? Like I want, and so it feels like it might be sort of inside the line, but then if we want to have it's like, I'm trying to imagine -- fail on Vex status equals, not affected. Like, why would I let somebody do that? Like, there's a Vex document that says this vulnerability doesn't affect it, and you told Grype where that Vex document was on purpose. Like, but now you want Grype to exit non-zero because of that. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Just don't have the Vex document. Just do something else.
yeah, I don't want to over rotate on that status example. I just wanted to use it as a way to say like, what if the surface area of what a user could input changes? Like, are we boxed in by choosing like the no statement, like literal phrase, or do we want a more generic expression there that's not too expressive but like can do more, kind of like what Keith's suggestion is? So that's yeah.
My 2 cents is that having sort of a long awkward flag that we know we're going to replace or leave as a forever alias isn't that bad. It would be worse to have -- fail on space Vex status equals missing be the only thing that can be right if that equals sign. Like, that would be very confusing because somebody's going to think they can pass something else. So I don't know. Is there like a simple, maybe kind of long flag, like dash dash require total vex document or something. I don't know.
I think
Go
I
ahead,
think
Chris.
if we went in like the tradition, like of how we normally update and do the config, like it would be we'd have the Grype config. There's the vex section at the top level, vex colon, and then you'd be like fail on no statement, true false. It would be like a boolean, right? And then you could just extend the flag. So dash dash vex dash fail on dash like no like something hyper specific, right? So we don't code ourselves like into having to shoehorn it into the current fail on that works with other things and with the vulnerable, but is isolated to like a small kind of vex section that we can update and talk about and expand and shrink within context to the document, like over time, as the vex document changes.
I think it's a good point that we don't need a flag for this, for sure. Like somebody can, implement something and use environment variables, and I think that would be fine.
Yeah, like we have such a high bar for flags already. Like we're coming at this because the user suggested the flag, and I'm just like, if we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into the UX and we're finding like kind of crinkles and roughness with implementing it, then we can still get the feature in that just is like to Keith's point, the environment variable and the isolated vex colon and the fail on no statement under that.
So I think we are like sort of left with like we have a few choices, right? We could accept sort of a long awkward string, either in an environment variable or a flag or a config file, that means specifically fail unless dash dash vex is passed and every finding is covered by a specific statement in dash dash vex. Like, so we could have that in environment variable, and then like that might stick around for a really long time, even if we later add like a nicer, more nuanced way of specifying statuses. Like, let's imagine we add a little bit of like fail on A equals B kind of criteria later. We'd have to like keep the alias around forever, or we have to sort of code this feature like in anticipation, right? We write this feature initially with the dash dash A equals B allowed, but there's only one valid one of those right now. I
I'm
don't.
with you on that. I think we should have a bigger plan for bringing in expression like things. I think I'm on team like fail on space no vex statement. It's like a little more clear, but it like today we have a fail on flag. We're just expanding out the values in there. You know, so being consistent with how you fail today, just make it easy to discover. So I think that's probably where I land.
And I think the other sort of big enum in Vex that we might want to think about is the Vex justifications. So if you want to say that a finding is not affected, there's like an enum of reasons, right? You can say the component's not there. You can say the vulnerable code's not there. And you can say the vulnerable code can't be controlled by the adversary. You could say the vulnerable code is not in the execution path, or you could say, inline mitigations already exist. I'm not really sure that so there seems like I'm imagining situations where those overlap, but I could imagine another thing it could say is that only certain ones of those are allowed or allowed to suppress or whatever. But I think the dash dash fail on accepts an additional argument of no vex statement is a reasonable one. Like I could live with that UX even if we had to like sort of awkwardly keep it around in the Grype 1.0 world, because there's always going to be probably dash dash fail on medium, and dash dash fail on no vex statement reads like what it means. So I like that. What do you think about telling this this user that they're welcome to contribute the feature, but we'd prefer it be a dash dash fail on no vex statement, which Alex suggested.
Let's do it. So
okay, cool.
And I think I'll see if I can get an issue written up that foreshadows that we have this need to revamp the CLI config. It's what I was mentioning earlier. Like we have, the way that things get ignored or fail, et cetera, it's in these disparate spots. And I think then kind of needs to be brought together. So I'll see if I can make an issue for that. Because it's not going to be like, oh, and here's a proposal. I think we're going to want to hear multiple proposals for what that would look like before we try to take any action. So it'd be great to get community feedback on that one.
Is that the end of that topic?
I think so.
Sweet. What's next? Do we have anything? We already decided we didn't have any triage, or we do. We just haven't. Some of these look. I'm sure we've discussed some of these before.
Yeah, I think maybe that view is not filtered by something we normally filter it on.
Oh, we normally do the needs discussion ones first. Are any of these ones we haven't discussed before?
I don't think so, but even the triage view is.
Yeah, usually I do
different from...
title.
I think you're in the awaiting response. Like you just got to collapse the awaiting response one.
Right, yeah.
That's what's going on.
Boop. There we go.
Yeah.
And that's more like it.
Let's dive in.
Right. That's been hanging around for ages. Why have we? Aha.
I think someone is planning to contribute that and hasn't. I think maybe this is really a waiting response. Right. So when the June 18th comment there automatically removed a waiting response because someone who's not on the team commented on it, but all they said was that's not a label anymore. It's a triage status. So if you go and where under the projects, if you hit the little triangle on the far right to see more things, and then under triage, choose an option.
Oh, I see. Oh shit, wrong one. Got it.
And that is a waiting response. I don't remember why we decided to do it that way, but that is the canonical way of marking something as a waiting response.
Okay.
We did it that way.
So that was easy.
We did it that way because the automation surrounding like untagging and tagging based on commenting for that aspect of the project model was easier than moving it between the columns and like dragging it around. So
there's another reason, which is is kind of silly, which is labels show up in the audit, for that all the events when you're reading through, and like when you're having a conversation, you kind of want it to flow. And if you if there's a label that keeps showing up, a waiting response, taking out a waiting response, it looks really silly. It was like that for about a week, and I was like, nope. So I went back and did it this way instead, so that it doesn't show up and it doesn't get in the way of the conversation. So
there's no way you can click a button here that says hide status changes or something. That would be nice.
Or hide like label changes, because there are definitely some like Linux Foundation issues that have been around for a while on some big projects that just like the last comment is from like 2 years ago, but the issue has persisted, and the whole rotation of that issue is just being chucked around different places. There's actually you have to scroll so far up just to see someone who actually talked about it.
Looks like there is an open issue for please hide events on GitHub, and nobody's answered it. What a surprise. Okay, this one, I think, is no longer a bug. It's a enhancement, isn't it?
We talked about this one last week, though.
Yeah, that's an enhancement.
Yeah. Is it? Do we also have a performance label?
We do in most repos.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Look straight past it.
Good.
Brilliant.
I think we should add a section to Chronicle so that like performance improvements show up in their own section of the release notes, because they're not really bugs or features, right? The app does the same thing. It just does it faster.
It's an easy config update. Yeah.
This one, there's an open PR. I've been talking with the author about it. We probably don't need to talk about it on the stream here.
Okay.
Maybe mark it in progress or something,
Yeah,
so that it goes away from the trio.
Is that under here?
Just the status. You can just put it in status. No
Oh, I see.
progress.
Boom. Nice. This one? 3 days ago. This is new. So this is Syft 4071.
Well, I think this is funny timing because I think Keith, your PR just landed that, but it hasn't. Has it released?
Is this Keith's sock puppet account? Like to get valuable gold stars for doing good work.
I mean, so I guess, how I'm reading this is like, okay, we're like trying to distinguish OpenJDK and Oracle JDK, which is like, it's got its own fun set of lineages to go and look through. But I think, Keith, you had a PR, it took a while to do, but like it was doing just only that. So I want to say this is we should probably not point them towards this PR. And I'm trying to remember if it's just released or if it's just merged.
It is just merged. I just checked. Yep. I will
Okay.
note that. I'll note that on this issue and see if it fixes the thing. It may be fixed in main at this very moment. What they're looking for.
Nice.
Fixing bugs right as they're reported. Nice.
Yeah, I know.
Just
It's
ahead.
like very prescient. Well done. So,
This is like Minority Report, but for like fixing bugs.
is it that one?
The one.
4046. Nice. Excellent. Well done. Good work. Right. So, golly, this is shrinking rapidly. Right. We've got nothing to do there. Are there any that we haven't looked at before?
I don't think so.
Yes, Chris.
Those all look familiar.
There was a suggestion last week from Will, and I don't think we can do it with 7 minutes or the time remaining, but maybe
Oh my gosh.
maybe the homework for next week is just we find ones that have just been like, everyone go find like a pet issue to bring that's just been lost and see if we can like, I don't know, if there's something you can do that's just like the quickest iterable contribution, like small 1 hour PR vibe coded, but just stuff that sits in the backlog forever that we've just been like, yeah, we'll do that eventually, and we just bring it and we talk it through, and that's like something that we can like move forward on the project a little bit.
And I find my suggestion wasn't even necessarily to like do that as homework, but just to literally look at the backlog during this meeting, because there's probably stuff that we don't need anymore, or stuff that was fixed under a different issue, or so it's the same thing as triage, but if you just click over to backlog, just say, I don't know. I mean, we could just choose a random thing from here that looks short. A lot of these we have discussed and we know we want to do them, but it might be interesting to just sort of talk through them on the air, solicit, contributions, realize that we already did this and forgot to close it, things like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to pull some together? I can do that. I can pull them together and build a list, and then
There's that, which is like kind of fun and professional. But Alan, didn't you also have the spin the wheel program that like we could watch happen in a channel that would just pull up an issue? Because that's also fun and random and can just...
Yeah, does that still work?
I don't know.
Where is it? Popey? Yeah, it is. Bug roulette. And then you can pick it. Yeah, so I made it so you could pick a repo, or you just do -- all, and it will just go and gather a bunch of issues from all of them, and then pick one at random. But I think actually there's opportunities to improve this, and what I've done previously is use GH to pull down every single issue with a certain tag, and then analyze those for certain markers, like lots of chat, or there's people who've said, yes, this is great. This will be a great issue for someone to work on. We'd love someone to work on this. And then if there's a conversation in there that we can introspect and find we're nearly there, we just need a bit of more brain power, or like you say, maybe it's already fixed.
Your enhancement suggestion sounds so useful. Mine was just going to be add the Wheel of Fortune and or Price is Right soundtrack to this process happening in the terminal, like a little 8-bit soundtrack to go with it. I like your suggestion better though.
Yeah, I quite like that. That sounds like a fun challenge. I will, have the Wheel of Misfortune spinning on the screen, and you watch the issue numbers going around with their titles and hope it doesn't stop. Okay, that sounds like a bug Wheel of Misfortune.
You can shorten it just to the Wheel of Work.
Brilliant. Well, I think we're running out of time. Oh, we've got 10 minutes, so maybe it'll come up with one. Gosh, I haven't run this for a while. Usually I run this before we start. Okay. Those are all the needs discussion ones. There's a needs discussion PR. What's that one?
Did we talk about that one? I think this is the one where there's like parsing symbols versus parsing modules. We definitely talked about that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we crushed that.
Well, we can call it early today. So
No. This one,
We get paid by the minute.
I think Alex is suggesting that because he might be back to back right now.
I'd quite like to go home as well. It's 9 o'clock here. Okay. Well, that's the wrong thing. Anyway, yes, we'll have that for next time, shall we? We'll knock it on the head here. And that was the bit where it gives you random community stuff. That was the fun bit. Grab all of those and then spin the wheel. That sounds like a plan. Okay.
Grand.
love it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for joining us. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Cheers, folks.
Bye. Bye-bye.